Okay, are we kind of ready to go?
Yeah.
Augustine Tanner. We've known each other for like 2 years, all online. You came over yesterday. You've enjoyed the wonders of the area and Crawley. And it feels like we really just have known each other for, it does feel like ages. In person, it feels really natural with you. And I think it kind of demonstrates we've spoken about a lot at depth. And finally, rather than me come up to Manchester, you come down here, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think, for the audience kind of sake, rather than us just talk about what we've spoken about and in a roundabout way, let's go from a chronological point from us. When Soul Survivor was happening and the news came out in the Telegraph, I was talking with lots of people who were personally affected. And I was hoping to rally up, I guess, like a group of people who would say, we need to think about things differently. But the more the time went on, the less people wanted to talk about it. They were injured, they were hurt, and it was like, I want to heal. And the best way to heal is to rest. And in their view, resting was not talking about it.
Yeah.
But there were a few people that continued to, a few people that were saying things that were creating a noise that I really valued, and you were part of that. So I looked you up and we started talking, and since then we've spoken about all sorts of things, and I think maybe we do that in our conversation. But let's start at that point where I got in touch with you originally around Mike Pilavachi and that article that you wrote. So for the audience's sake and for mine, to remind me, what was that a couple of years ago?
Yeah, Sam. So basically, Soul Survivor Ministries and Mike Pilavachi had a huge impact on Christianity, and especially people in my age gap between 25 and 35. Loads and loads of people have became Christians, have become ministers of any sort, ordained or youth or whatever, because of the ministry of Soul Survivor. So it's hugely impactful for me. Even though I didn't personally go to Soul Survivor Church or go to the Soul Survivor summer conferences. So, but what really, really kind of bothered me, and forgive me, maybe this is because I'm so American, was the elephant in the room. And living in the UK for now 13 years, you guys are so good at having this massive elephant in a small amount of room and somehow navigating through it. And it's so weird. I'm like, British people are just so good at doing that. Maybe that's why you took over 2/3 of the world. I don't know. But like, it was amazing. And my thing was like, Mike Pilavachi. I wrote the article with Via Media News, which is like a Anglican news thing, newsletter thing, with my friend who's a youth worker who went to Soul Survivor conferences and things like that, was massively impacted. And we said, why isn't the church talking about Mike Pilavachi with his sexual orientation? We both identify as, me and my friend Johnny, who wrote the article, we both identify as gay men who are still active in the church, evangelical, charismatic, kind of in that.
Dog collar wearing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dog collar wearing. And Johnny took the lay ministry route of youth work and really devoted his life to doing youth work in now secular context, but still very involved in ministry. And we're just like, why isn't anyone talking about that, the G word? Why isn't people saying that, he might be gay? And I thought it was just really weird. I'm like, why is no one saying that? And I'm like, is this because there's a generation above us that just are afraid of saying that word, and the younger people are just like, you can just say it? Is it because people were like, they knew that he was, let's say, same-sex attracted, but didn't want to say we employed or we left to someone who was, because it could be dangerous? Or maybe they were trying to protect LGBT people, plus people, because they're like, oh, we don't want to say, have this mantra of, older, gay, predatorial man. I was like, I don't know. Yeah. But we were like, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. And that's kind of where I came from for writing the article.
And from that article, what were your kind of conclusions? What was your kind of standout kind of part that you remember or you'd want to repeat?
Yeah, my standout part with Johnny we wrote was basically that Mike Pilavachi was such an influential person, and he was around a theology that we believe that was toxic. It was a theology that spoke of LGBT plus orientation being negative, being harmful, being sinful, maybe even being demonic. And he was around those things that he probably suppressed that, with lots of queer people in the church have experienced that suppression of sexuality. And the only way that he could deal with it is do the things that he dealt with. So for me, I'm like, okay, what's the root of it? Okay, you can say, oh, because, people said, oh, he's just a really horrible, manipulative person. But it's like, what was the factors around him that created that? And that's the thing that we really wanted to talk about.
Got it. And I think that's where I've kind of got to as well. Obviously, I've spoken about in the past the sort of aspects that, using that term that I used earlier, I guess injured me. And I'm I've moved on from that, realising that the silence that followed seemed a lot more alarming to me than the mistakes and the character flaws of an individual. And I guess in some ways I'd like to use that to frame our conversation. We can talk about the individuals who let us down, people with power, and you've experienced that to a much greater extent than I have. But also you're an actor, so you know what rejection feels like.
Exactly.
and that for me is kind of the using that expression from the 90s, like the smell the coffee aspect to this. Like, wake up. Like, both of us work in the similar industry, and you do it, as well. We both know what it's like to experience rejection. We both know what it's like to have aspiration and dreams that are kind of slashed every single opportunity, and then you get the odd one that works and it's exciting. So we're not saying this in kind of isolation of oh, I'm so injured I can't get out of bed. You're still wearing your dog collar. I'm still talking about Jesus.
I'd say this. So when I was an undergraduate at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, so a very, very conservative undergraduate institution, the chief financial officer quit, and he announced that he quit. And I remember him saying he used to work for an oil company, and he says working for the oil company it was easier to be a Christian than work as a Christian in ministry. And I was like, what? And it was just like, I was like, 18, 19, very like, what? Whatever. And he said, because when Shell had an oil spill, you probably remember that in the early 2000s, they had an oil spill. BP said, what can we do to help? And he goes, when we have a ministry issue at the university, and we want to other people to help, people are like, no, I'm not helping you. I'm like, wow. He goes, so if anything you could do to leave ministry, to not do ministry, please leave ministry and don't do it. This is a ministry institution training people to be missionaries, pastors, and Christian leaders around the world. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm like, that guy's jaded. Like, I was very much like that.
You didn't take his advice.
No, I didn't take his advice.
So we, okay. So let's start talking about some of these things. So Soul Survivor is important to you personally too, along with New Wine, and using that example, people distance themselves. When the news came out in the Telegraph, and people were so lazily, slowly, laboriously replying, about, we still support him. That was happening first. This stuff isn't true. And then the pennies dropped. I'm on the wrong side. I need to either say it breaks it. Well, no one actually said anything as emotional as it breaks our heart, which would have been kind of more real, I think. But the kind of the response from New Wine was, oh, we had nothing to do with Soul Survivor. And there were thousands of us who were like, duh. Sorry, that's like gaslighting at a level which is just ridiculous. I mean, no one's that stupid. Oh, they were. But for you, and the reason I bring up New Wine is that was important to you.
Yeah.
So you were you're from the US, hence the accent.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But you chose to make Britain your home.
Yeah.
So give me an idea of the move from the US and then Britain becoming your home.
Yeah, so I have to say, within the charismatic evangelical Anglican vineyard type of world, I am so different background-wise. So different. So I grew up in a homeless shelter. I was in homeless shelters most of my childhood. Became a Christian through the Assemblies of God Pentecostal experience. And then
give me an idea. How'd you become a Christian?
I know.
And you know what I mean? Just to give me a little bit of an
really
idea.
Quick. Yeah.
No, not necessarily quick, but just the becoming a Christian means two things. When you stand on a stage, you could do that. Yeah, exactly. But there's, how do you know you became a Christian?
Yeah, no. So I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And then when I was about 13, 14, I had a good friend who was self-harming. He was like really just struggling a lot with his mental health. And he ended up being hospitalized. And this is the day when people still had phone books. And I remember like knowing his last name and looking through the phone book, knew his street number, and I found his number and I called his parents, like, what can I do to help? They said, can you go to youth group with him? And I was a bit like, that's not really what I was like trying to figure out what could help, but also like at 13, 14, what can you do to help really?
Yeah.
So at 13, I went to start going to his youth group, and I remember hearing a song called Better Is One Day. Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
Who was that by?
Matt Redman.
Oh, that's so weird. First Christian song I ever heard, Better Is One Day. And I was like, what a stupid song. because again, I was like, better is one day in your courts. I'm thinking basketball courts. This is so ridiculous, whatever. And remember Sanctuary? Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, good and holy, tried and true. Do you know that song?
You think so?
Okay.
Yeah,
it just goes over and over. And I just
okay.
hated these songs.
Right, got it.
But then I went to summer camp, which is obviously a huge thing in America, summer camp.
Yeah, sure.
Went to summer camp. And I remember it being $160 for the week, which is, amazing, isn't it, right now? But as a poor kid who was in and out of homeless shelters with his family, that was a lot
tremendous
of money.
amount of money. Yeah.
So I don't even know how much money the weekly wage was, but that was a lot of money. The church sponsored me to go, so I went, and I had this tremendous experience, like a huge experience with God, with the Holy Spirit. And I always thought God was this angry guy who you need to behave because he's going to be hurting you. Kind of like in movies when the alcoholic father comes and he is like throwing everything and beating the wife, and the kids are in their room or under their bed like hiding.
Well, like in Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, it's the Old Testament. The God of Israel destroys everything that moves and stands.
And he can come back at any time, and he's
and that's what
wrath.
the thing. Right.
Yeah, so we as a child, I grew up being like, he can come back at any time.
Right.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
So we exclude ourselves from most of society. So but when I came to this camp, this Assembly of God camp in Carlinville, Illinois, Nowhereville, Illinois, and they were singing these songs. It was Hillsong songs. And I was just like, oh, wow. And I saw people get healed. And I was like, wait, what? And there's one person I knew that his leg was broken. I knew his leg was broken. And during the worship time, people just prayed for him. It wasn't like a big showy thing, but he was healed. And I was like, whoa. So his greatest hits isn't just 2,000 years ago. It can happen today. And I remember having this kind of vision of God embracing me, saying, I love you. I'm crazy in love with you. And being like, wow. And then I'm like, I want to follow him. And then from 14 on, even in the face of opposition from my mom and some of my family members, I was like, no, I'm going to follow Jesus. This is great. And in that 4 years coming, I decided actually, I think I want to go to Bible college. Right. I think I want to go to a Christian university. So the only Christian university Bible college I knew really was the one in downtown Chicago, and I applied there.
So from my perspective, based on the stuff we're talking about, when I've been talking around homosexuality and stuff and the church, for some reason it always seems to be squared with liberal church. And yet what you offer and what you bring to our conversation, I think perhaps an audience who are talking, is a sense that no, you've got this same charismatic evangelical experience that I do. And yet, rather than being, there seems to be a homogenization required in order to fit in this club. But where I'm thinking is like you talking about Mike Pilavachi. This kind of has, that's where and when we were talking a little bit before we started filming, there seems to be, I think we're onto something there.
Yeah, and the thing is, the charismatic evangelical world, that's my family.
Yeah, right.
That's my home, without a doubt. And I went to a university that was a lot like Oak Hill or St. Helen Bishopgate, so very word-based, but didn't really believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit for today. So I came from a Pentecostal background, so I was like, I want to go to a Pentecostal, more charismatic Pentecostal church. So I started going to this Vineyard Church in Chicago, and they were wild, and they had fire tunnels, which I hate. I think they're weird. I think they're a bit weird. But I kept going to the church because I was like, actually, I just want to be able to be in an environment that really said, come Holy Spirit. I thought it was just really important.
And asking an obvious question maybe, but maybe not. Maybe I think it's still worth asking. Chicago's a pretty mixed city, right? Like,
yes.
Was the church a mixed church, or was it?
Yeah, it was mixed. I would say it was majority white.
Okay.
And so I became a Christian within majority white churches. So
Okay.
most of my church experience will be majority white churches. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Neat.
So I went to this church, and they were like wild, like, and I realized like, after going for about 2 years, I was like, oh, I think I kind of disagree with some of the theology of this church. And I'll be honest, I didn't handle it very well as a young person. What I did is I kind of just like slowly stopped going until they realized like, where are you?
Yeah.
And I stopped going, and I was quite burned by that church because I mean they're preaching prosperity gospel, and I was just like, I'm just not.
Oh, really? In the Vineyard?
They left the Vineyard. They left
okay.
the Vineyard to be more charismatic, and they were quite prosperity gospel. And I was just like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do this. So I had a really kind of broken down experience with them. And I went to Evanston Vineyard, which is quite a big vineyard, with Steve Nicholson, who come to the UK every once in a while.
Right.
Big guy. But it was quite far away from where I lived, so then I didn't really do that. And I was in seminary, and I was studying, and I was just like, I remember my Southern Baptist systematic theology professor was like, I was like, I just don't agree with the local church just being on its own. I think there needs to be someone to speak into the local church. I think that structure, just the local church being on its own, doing whatever they want to do, I don't think that's okay, because that's kind of what happened with my church. Because I was like, I wish I could have, there was some overseer outside of my church could be like, the church, the theology was a bit weird, and like things are going really astray.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, so like an episcopate. And I go, yeah, that's, I guess. And I'm like, oh yeah, like a bishop. Oh, I'm Episcopalian.
Really?
And that's what I realized. I was like, actually, because I believe that the church structure should have overseers outside of the local church, I realized with my Southern Baptist professor, oh, actually, I'm Episcopalian. I need to go to a church with that structure. So lots of those non-denominational, big evangelical megachurches stuff often comes from a loose structure purpose. And I was like, actually, for me and my own, that pain that I experienced through that church, actually, I need to be a part of an Episcopal church. Now, at the time, the Episcopal church was going through a massive split.
Yeah.
They split. Loads of people left because of same-sex marriage, and because they just consecrated the first gay bishop in communion, Gene Robinson, and people were like, this is terrible. And so I remember going to an Episcopal church, and I was like, wow, this is like Roman Catholic. Like, this is not charismatic evangelical at all. I'm like, this is not my vibe.
Yeah.
But then during that time, I had this really weird call. I felt this call to England. I know it's very strange.
How?
Well, we had these ministry trips. My university didn't call them missions trips. They call them ministry trips because they realized that short-term things are more for the individual than for the people they're serving.
Sure.
So it's which I agree with.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We went over to Liverpool to work with this little Baptist church, And I absolutely loved the 2.5 weeks we were there. I'm like, this is amazing. First time outside of North America. I'm like, this is great. I feel like God has called me here. At the same time, I became this like Episcopalian, like more theologically than practically. And
I guess your study was encouraging you to think like that, right? It's not, or was that like your kind of homework?
It was
extracurricular.
It was extracururcular.
Right,
it was.
okay.
I mean, it was. They were very much not wanting me to think like that at all.
Right. Okay.
But I was like very much. Oh, I think so. This is also during this time is the Young Restless Reform movement. So this is Mark Driscoll, John Piper.
Oh, okay.
These are huge, really Calvinistic. I think 2011, the Time magazine saying the number one movement in America is a Young Restless Reform movement, which is a Calvinistic religious movement, which is crazy to think of. That would never happen in the UK. So it was very different to that movement. That's where all my friends were coming from. Also, I've always believed in women's able to preach and teach and be ordained. They don't believe that at all. Most of the people around me didn't believe that. So I was very much different in that sense. So I'm used to being different theologically. But then I came to England. I went to England on that ministry trip, came back, and I just talked to some of my English friends. I go, oh, do you know any like organizations I can do kind of a placement or internship with? And my friend, who is not at all Church of England, he is a Baptist from Devon, actually, said, have you heard of Soul Survivor? And I'm like, what? And I go, no, I never heard. I'm like, I never heard of Soul Survivor. I'm like, that sounds a bit scary. Anyway, Soul Survivor sounds a bit scary. And he goes, oh no, it's a really, really good ministry. It's like one of the biggest ministries in the UK. You should look at that. So I looked at that online, and I looked at the internship, Soul 61, and I was like, oh, this looks really cool. It's like north of London, whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's an internship and it costs money. Oh, I have to go work for free. And I'm like, no offense, I'm a black man. I am not going to England to work for free for white people. And my head, I still had that like, oh no, I'm not doing that. That's a bit weird. So, yeah, I know it's crazy, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I looked at the Soul Survivor website, and then through that, I told my friend, like, I don't want to do that. He goes, oh, well, what about New Wine? Because New Wine, Soul Survivor came out of New Wine, and they're a big organization. So I was like, okay. So then I looked at New Wine Discipleship here, and then I looked at it online, and I was like, there's one in Liverpool. So then I was like, oh, it's somewhere I've been. So I applied, and I went.
Wow. Okay. Great.
Sorry, that was a long...
Yeah. No, but it makes sense, and it's kind of important for it to make sense, because of what I know about you. So, I feel like it's pretty random that you got to a stage where you thought the Episcopal Church made sense to you theologically. For me, you're a vicar, so so it makes sense in the outcome.
Well, it's weird. It made sense in the idea of accountability,
right? Of
like having overseers outside of your local church. I mean, I think a lot of stuff that has happened in the States with scandals and things like that and cover-ups, partially is because there's no mechanism because they're independent. Obviously, there's stuff that happens in the Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church. But
that's the reality, though. The mechanism that you're suggesting, perhaps it's more useful philosophically than it is practically.
Yes, without a doubt. I mean,
the ideal of it is brilliant.
Yeah.
In practice, it's shit.
Exactly.
Well, is what I'm learning.
Absolutely. And I think for me, I was like, how can we have accountability? How can we have transparency? And I think the best thing to have that is having oversight. Interesting enough, being American, obviously, the thing that Americans love is that idea that we have 3 branches of government, none more important than the other, and they can veto each other, right? So it's this accountability thing. So I was very much like, oh, this is a really great model. So then when I found out, actually, of course, the Episcopal Church comes from the Church of England, historically. And then I learned that, you can have that Episcopal model, but it can be much more diverse in church tradition. So that, you can go to a Sunday, you can go to Holy Trinity Brompton on Sunday, then you can go to Westminster Abbey, then you can go to All Saints Market Street, then you can go to St. Helens Bishopgate, And then you can go to like a church that is like, really, St. James Piccadilly. These are all very radically different church traditions, but all under the same denomination. And I'm like, that's wild and really, really cool. Okay. And the Episcopal Church wasn't like that. So right. I was drawn to the Church of England because of that diversity.
So I remember you saying something quite early on when we were talking on the phone or whatever, on a video call, where you were saying you felt called to be a Church of England vicar. So so there was this, is that in the US? Is that in that ministry trip in Liverpool? Or was that something that then developed?
It developed, but I knew I wanted to be a church leader in the Church of England from probably 2012 when I was after I came back from the UK. Uh-huh. And it was like, this is what I want to do. I probably wouldn't have used the term priest or vicar. Those probably were too new to me, I think, to use. But yeah, I think that also, if you say priest in America, that it just confuses people. So, and people don't know what a vicar is in America either. So I think that I would have definitely said church leader in the Anglican Church. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you've come out. Tell me then. I mean, some of the stuff which I really value speaking with you about is you're incredibly honest and vulnerable with me about two aspects of who you are that I don't have much understanding of, which is being a black man and being a gay man.
Yeah.
So I'm
dyslexic. Are you dyslexic?
No. Oh, well, not. Well, I no, probably just thick.
Okay. Just wondering. I'm like, maybe we can share that.
No. I was trying to look for something. Have we got anything? No. But in some respects, even our joke here is the kind of it's not funny. Right? In this context, it's not funny.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where I want us to start talking. So, philosophically, you were drawn to ministry.
Yeah, absolutely.
In practice, it's taken its toll.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wonder how we draw it back to, whether we draw it back to Soul Survivor, whether we need to, maybe some of your experiences in some of those things. So, we were talking about the kind of the homogenized need in this context. You must have sort of started in Liverpool as you always do when you start something new, like properly optimistic. That sense of, I'm here now, guys. I'm going to do some great stuff. And also, I'm here and what can I learn? It's kind of when you're young and when you're equipped, you've done all this study, you've processed a lot of this stuff. Most people just kind of don't have to think about or don't think about, which is what church do I belong in? What reflects what gets me kind of excited about where can growth happen? So you and then what were some of the things? Because obviously, also being American, like I've lived in the US, we're quite different.
Yeah.
Like we share the same language. But I feel like a lot of the time I feel more similar culturally to, I don't know, a Dane.
I knew you were going to say it's a Scandinavian person. Yeah.
Oh, because have I said that before?
Yeah.
Well, I think, culturally, I feel like, Swedish, they're too grumpy. Norwegians are just like way too happy. But Danish seems to have a good kind of balance. And so when I've travelled and people that I know. But then also the French, I feel like I've got more in comparison, with just 20 from here, it's like an hour away, really, So I feel like I have more in common with the French than I do the US. And yet I didn't expect that until I experienced it. I was like, hey, I'm going to get on. When I lived in South Carolina, hey, this is going to be easy. Or when I worked in Baltimore a lot. Oh, we get on, and in business, especially when I was doing it latterly, it made it easier. But church isn't about business. Church is about relationship.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you came over with all of this sort of ambition. Where did it start to? Where did the penny drop?
Yeah. So again,
because you've been here for 13 years, right? This isn't like 2 years ago.
No.
You've been really like.
I've been invested. Yeah. So I would say that I wasn't in this thing like, I'm coming over here to change the world, to evangelize. I wasn't at all like that. But I was.
Did you not have it a bit?
I was like,
Because you're a bright guy, you're a charismatic guy.
I wanted definitely to be able to share the gospel with people without a doubt, but
Yeah.
I wasn't like expecting to be a church leader of a mega church. That was never my thing. But I think that I also had this idea that I came from poverty, from like homelessness. You know, when I was a kid, we were sleeping in a car. You know, I experienced homelessness and homeless shelters most of my life, and then now I have a master's degree in theology from a really good university. I'm like, I'm pretty, I can do this. I'm quite resilient.
Yeah.
So I was assuming that, and I think I'm a pretty good preacher as well. So I honestly thought I'm going to do this internship. And then after the internship, people are going to be like, come here, and offer me jobs.
Yeah, of course.
And early on into the internship, well, even actually right before, I came out at like only a couple months before I came to the UK, but I came out within a very conservative theological context.
So how did you? Because but understanding how you came, for me, that's just such a. If you're happy to talk about,
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So how did you come out?
Of course. I mean, it's funny because I tell my partner this now, and he's like, "Of course, you have to go big or go home." I wrote it in my school newspaper. I wrote it.
And when you say school, you mean like university?
The university, the university newspaper. So I wrote it in school newspaper in May of 2013. I basically said my story. I basically said like how, some people are going to struggle their whole life with same-sex attraction. And I actually said gay, actually, because at that time I was still very much like, I don't like the word same-sex attraction. I think it's a bit weird and jaded, but I said gay.
Yeah.
And I have friends that love me and care for me, and that was really important. I had a roommate that was really amazing as well. Pray for us that struggle and blah, blah, blah. We should be embraced in the church, blah, blah, blah. So I said that. Now, majority of people were like, wow, thank you for the vulnerability. That's really nice. Some people were like, you shouldn't call yourself gay. That's bad, whatever. Some people were very much like, they were like, no, you, like, God's plan for you is to have a wife. Like, this is not okay. The church I was going to, which had like a little bit of oversight, it wasn't Episcopalian, but a little bit of oversight thing. They were like very happy for me, but obviously I'm going over to England. I had to raise money because I had no money, and they wouldn't financially support me, this church, because I'm not married. Because they believe that couples go. And their whole denomination they were part of, NCMI and MCMI, which is a South African denomination, they were like, "Oh yeah, we can't." And I'm like, "Oh,
have they not read Paul's letters?"
I know. And I was a bit like, "You're not supporting me because I don't have a wife." But then I'm trying to. But in my side, it was like I'm taking to attraction. I'm trying to stay pure, stay theologically pure, if you want to say that. But how? So they're like, "I'm really sorry. We love you. We'll pray you out, but not that." And that was a bit like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But I kind of knew that the end of that chapter, that church was going to be closed anyway, because I'm going to going to the UK. I got to a couple months before I went to the UK. The person in charge of the internship was basically like, I saw this thing online. Are you same-sex attracted? And I go, yeah, I am. And they go, oh, so us putting you in a house with 3 other guys isn't really good. I go, no, that's fine. They're like, yeah, we aren't going to do that. We have to find you somewhere else to live. And I was like, oh, okay. So then they roomed me with a family in the church. Now, I'm like 23 years old at the time. I'm like, it's like a mom and dad and 2 kids. I'm like, I don't want to live with small kids at 23,
Yeah.
I was lodging is a thing that happens in the UK, but it's not really a thing that happens in the US. It's a very new thing. The family were quite homophobic and said quite homophobic things when I was there. They didn't know I was, but they kept saying stuff. I felt very uncomfortable.
What, just like flippant kind of?
Yeah.
Like using it as a...
Yeah, just like I remember someone saying like, oh, I wish we just put all these gay people on an island and then just like burn the island down. Yeah. I'm like, you do know that gay people don't reproduce gay people, but that's a whole other thing. So that was like really weird for me, and I remember, and that's when conversion therapy started. So when I got to the UK, they said, the leader of the internship said, "Hey, this is on Thursday evenings. I think it was Thursday evenings, and your schedule for your internship is there's these things called a small group that people that struggle with the same things you do." And I literally thought it was going to be like a support group, per se.
Yeah.
But then when I went, I realized it was this thing called called Life Ministry. It's actually based in New York City, and it's full-blown conversion therapy. And the website, if you go to lifeministry.org, I think it's called, it's pretty horrendous.
And that still exists?
It still exists. And I think that I think even people with a conservative Christian sexual ethic would read the articles and they'd be like, wow, this is extreme. And so it was kind of enforced that I go there. That I go
as
there.
part of
my internship. Now, I had to do a visa to get here, right? So they controlled my visa. So I felt like I needed to do this. I felt very uncomfortable. And after a while, I don't want to go in detail of what happened, but after a while, I was like, I just really don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I remember the leader of the internship said, it's like we're giving you a pill to cancer, to cure your cancer, and you're rejecting it. Kind of like the Matrix red pill.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was a bit like, oh, wow. And I'm in England. I'm in this... I eventually moved with some people who I knew.
But to reiterate on the sort of conversion therapy, essentially the government have now made that illegal, right, in Britain?
No, not yet.
Or it's in the process? It was muted, or...
It's been in the process for about 6-7 years.
So it's not illegal?
It's not illegal. I've spoken openly about my experience, particularly in Liverpool, at the Labour National Conference twice, and also when the Conservatives in power with the Conservatives as well. So
you're really in it. You know it.
Very, very, very in it.
Okay, so if it's not illegal, is it still happening?
Yes, it's still happening. It's still happening. It's happening in all different ways. I think it's happening in non-faith communities, but it's also happening a lot in faith communities. And I know people who are Muslim that experienced it. I know people who are Jewish that experienced it. I know lots of people who are Christian experienced it. Lots of, unfortunately, ethnic minority communities of churches still do it. And also, majority white communities still do it as well. Yeah.
So at some point, maybe we'll make another video together about this.
Yeah.
And there are reasons that we're not going to talk about it, but I think it's an important thing to mention that you did experience.
Yeah.
In year one of you being here.
Yeah.
In year one of the beginning of
your
ministry.
I think what's really important as well is when I tell people I've experienced conversion therapy, you know what people always assume?
What? No.
That it was from the U.S.
Oh, I see. Right.
Because it's this idea that, come on, we're intellectual, enlightened people, British people. We're not backwards like those crazy Americans. We wouldn't do that. But actually, did I experience some conversion therapy in the U.S.? Yeah, but not structured like it was here.
Structured and scheduled, almost calendared.
Yes. Yeah.
How then did you move from there? So you spent. I mean, were there? You don't need to say this for any political kind of. Hey, but the bright side was. But what was the positive from that year? What
I fell in love with Scouse people, without a doubt. I think they're absolutely amazing. I fell in love with the north of England. It was really cool. I felt that British Christianity was much more liberating in some sense. Like, I could go to the pub, right? I could dance. These are two things in my undergraduate institution that you can't do. So it was that was really, really amazing. I coached American football at the university, and I met some really good friends. And one of my friends, I officiated his wedding, and he's going to be one of the groomsmen for my sort of partnership coming up this year. So like I met some really amazing people. One of my also another groups, wedding party, Anna, who I met from church. Some people I enormously loved that I met. That was really good as well.
Great. So from there, how did you move from this place in Liverpool?
It's interesting. This church in Liverpool, one of the things that I wanted to do is I got all the theological training that I had. I wanted more practical training. So I had preached a few times before, but I wanted to preach in front of a congregation. I wanted to lead a service. Or at the time I would have said lead a meeting, because that's the type of...
Yeah, sure.
We wouldn't have said... Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
We wouldn't have said service like that. We would have said a meeting.
That's way too formal.
Which is really funny, because I remember... later when I moved to Romford, I said I want to lead a meeting, and I remember the vicar at the time, very Anglo-Catholic church, was like, okay, yeah, you can lead a meeting, and I realized very much, he means like a formal
like a business meeting,
and I'm like, but obviously the charismatic Pentecostals would know a meeting means like we're meeting with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It's service time.
Yeah.
So but I never got to do that, and it was towards the end of my time there. I remember talking to the associate pastor, who's now the senior pastor. He said, we're not going to do that because we only invest in people who are investable.
What?
And I was like, you don't think I'm investable? And I remember just being like, wow, okay, that's rejection. That kind of hurts. As well as the congregation at that church was, I would probably say 25% black. And I said, why is no one who is black like on stage? Not like singing, not leading a service, not doing any of those things. And he goes, well, we don't think about diversity. We think about who's the best and who's called. And I remember just being like, oh, wow. Now, I will easily say that person has, post-2020, during Black Lives Matter, he did apologize. He goes, I was completely blind to that type of thing. Forget that language, but blind to that. And I'm like, yeah, because there's loads of people that had this calling that maybe for leadership or doing something, but you guys just were like, forget them. That's the nice black people that tithe and they do their own thing. So
then we're talking about unconscious bias or prejudice. Well, it's just discrimination.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not give it the kind of PC words. It's just discrimination, right?
Yeah.
And whether someone recognises it or not, it doesn't matter. It just is. Oh, and it follows the conversation that we had about traitors, right?
Yeah. So one thing. I mean, I absolutely love the traitors, and from celebrity traders to the regular traders, and constantly I think people are finally getting this unconscious bias of like the person of color is like automatically a traitor and we have to get rid of them. Yeah. And you're seeing it in this past season, and it's so
okay. One sec. Yeah.
It's so very clear, and it's a really good experience of a British context that shows, we realized that we could have that same experience. So that's what I experienced in Liverpool at that church.
Yeah, we get to observe it in traitors, sitting in our chair, drinking a cup of tea, and go, "Whoa, what just happened there?" I wonder how many people that are watching our conversation have even spotted that.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting, I think, about homophobia or racism is, we were both, raised by the church, right? And we were told that if there's something feeling a little unright with you need to seek God about that and repent, basically, right?
Yeah.
But somehow, when it comes to like the racism or homophobia that's in us, it's okay to lash out. Goes, no, you're wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's really,
right.
It's really interesting. Because if you
because the negative space of the listening to your feeling is when you don't have that, you're right. That's the negative space, or isn't it? That's the yin to the yang is that if you feel uncomfortable, you need to seek God. If you feel comfortable, then you've got it right, and you're naturally right. So if you have that bias, well, then you're right because you don't feel uncomfortable about it.
Because if you said, hey, Augustine, like, I see that you drink quite a lot. Like, is that becoming a problem? If I get offended by that, then I should go and say, okay, let me reflect about that. Maybe I am drinking too much. Maybe that's not good for me. Maybe I need to stop doing that. Instead of this idea of I'm offended that you would even say that because you're so obviously wrong. And actually, I think that's what we need to, we need to do. So
we do, and talk. Hence these things. Yeah. So for me, this is really valuable because I get to examine myself in this conversation, and I get to do it on camera with your your skepticism or criticism, but also friendship, which for me is massively valuable. But this is what it's about, right?
It is, absolutely.
So you experience this, and I'll just use it. I just don't like how political it all is and everything. But the unconscious bias is essentially part of the system that I want to talk about. So one of the things I've been talking about has been silence. Within the safeguarding process, let's protract everything so that people run out of steam, that they stop, and if they run out of steam, they'll stop talking about it. Then we don't have to worry about it. Another one is if you're different to us, we'll say that we'll include you, but maybe we won't. And that's part of, I think, what we're sort of talking about here and there as we continue. So that guy, I'm glad he said sorry. But it's a bummer that he had that power to have to say sorry afterwards, hopefully it's
interesting. That's the only thing he said sorry about. He doesn't. He still very much agrees with conversion therapy. And I've no problem talking with this. He he works for a public body now in Liverpool,
right?
That has authority, not just in the church anymore, but this authority, and he still believes in conversion therapy. And he would say, well, I get all the things you say. I've seen all the signs, things like that. But the thing is, I know people who have changed. I have friends that have changed. Therefore, I think this is good. And obviously, testimony and experience is very powerful. But I think the data tells us that it's just not good.
I mean, I don't know. Actually, well, I hadn't even considered about whether we talk about the value of it. I wasn't even in that sort of. So I mean, I can't even justify part of it.
It's interesting because I only recently had in the last 2 years had therapy because of conversion therapy, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I would always try to say something positive, like, oh well, it was bad, but this good happened. And my therapist would continue to say, Augustine, there's nothing good to happen out of that. It's all harmful.
But yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you're right. And it was almost like.
But I'm sorry to be like, and I know you were on camera, but you were kind of defending it again then a little bit. You just did.
Yeah.
Like, you just challenged me, and I was like, oh, hang on, I wasn't expecting you to kind of defend it a bit.
Is it? And I think because of my background, I have this idea of almost like defending it sometimes, which is very strange, even though I completely disagree with it, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I just saw that.
And it's, like, it would be like if you like, but in some ways that is a little bit like, sometimes some of our evangelical structure, we're told to see the good and bad situations, aren't we? If you got in a car accident and lost, and then you don't have any arms or legs, and you're like, this has been one of the worst things that happened to me, but
it means I can now minister to others.
And the testimony is, oh yeah, but me and my wife got closer because she has to be my carer, and it just brought us closer, blah blah blah. Instead of just being like, actually, this just really sucked. Yeah. This is all bad. This was all bad. But, So
yeah, I think the Redeemer. We worship the Redeemer, and I don't think that is all. That is now too. When we pray, the Lord's Prayer. Heaven is about being here too now.
Yeah.
The kingdom of heaven is something that we aspire to, we live for, and in our worship, I do think that can happen. There can be a sense of redemption in the worst things, but it doesn't justify it ever.
Yeah.
Because we live in a broken world, in
Absolutely.
a sinful world. We sin. We live in principalities of power and powers. All that stuff, we live within that. So the kind of the justification or it's the simplification of life. Oh, let's make this a bit more tidy, and then we'll feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
That's what I can't stand about the evangelical church.
No, yeah.
Everything has to be really tidy, and it's just not.
Yeah. I think
the tidiness of what we're talking about is conversion therapy is disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's one thing that I have, I've wrestled with and reflected on a lot is it's very much a part of the Black church, and you probably maybe heard it. It's like today might be Friday, but Sunday is coming. Have you heard that phrase before? Today might be Friday, but Sunday is coming. The idea is, the death is Friday.
Oh right, okay.
Sunday is resurrection.
Wow.
So
okay.
So it's a very much big thing, and particularly the African American church, people say that.
Right.
But the idea is you need to sit in that Friday, and you need to act. And what happens is sometimes we go from Wednesday to Sunday, and we need to dwell in that lament in that Friday instead of just being like, yeah, but there's a resurrection. It's like, no, but there's death. And that's sad and that's hard. Sorry, I'm preaching now.
No, it's fair. And it's painful. And it's death.
And I have to say, with ministry, I thought the difficult things, now, I've been doing, I would probably say, since I was 18, been doing some form of ministry. So almost 20 years. I would say that the difficulty of ministry that people talk about, it's something that is very difficult to write about. Because it's not what we think of. It's not the burnout. It's not the doing things that it's really hard to explain. It's actually the emotional roller coaster in your mind and in your heart that is exhausting. I've only been able to do ministry with another person, a partner, for 2 years with that. I have to say, my goodness, it obviously has been difficult in that way, but gosh, I'm seeing the benefit of doing ministry alongside someone who loves and cares for me that I'm like, oh, crazy. And someone that goes, okay, you need to stop. Why are you doing that on Saturday? So it's really, really, really helpful as well. So, yeah.
So we're talking, so the first 2 years while you were here, and almost like the last 2 years. What happened in between? What's some of that happened? And let's kind of keep bringing back that kind of sense of who you are, identity, how others perceive you, and then calling. Yeah.
So I finished the New Wine Discipleship here. I tried to stay for another year doing somewhere else. Because of visa issues, couldn't find another place. So I went home to Chicago, went to go teach for a year at the high school that I went to, which was a terrible idea.
No, cool.
It was a terrible idea.
Yeah, but it sharpens you.
It does.
It's nothing like teaching. Is it a kind of school that you have to go through metal detectors and stuff?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't rough. It was good. But it was just, I wasn't old enough for the teachers to respect me because I was like, you were here like 5 years ago.
Right.
And then I was closer to the ages of students I was teaching than the teachers I worked with.
Yeah.
So it was just like, and my brother, my sister, and my two cousins were both working. It was all at that high school as well. So it was just like really, really weird.
Yeah.
Plus, I was a part of a local church. I was a youth leader at a local church. So I never really realized working at a school and being a youth leader and how that relationship go. It's very weird.
Formal, informal.
It's very weird. It's like, how do you do that? And then like they may come to me during the day, like, oh, I'm having struggle with this, whatever.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh, because I am your youth leader, and I'm like, whatever. And American, how they do safeguarding and stuff like that is like drastically different than the UK. So I was used to being in the UK, and I'm like back in the US, I'm like, this is crazy. So was there for 9 months, and then I went and then I went back and I moved to Romford. I moved to Romford and did this thing called the Ministry Experience Scheme, Church of England Ministry Experience Scheme, which is for young people between the ages of 18 and 30 to experience a year of ministry in a different context somewhere in the Church of England, to test their vocation. So I would say majority of it is like to get people to do younger priests, because they saw that, oh wow, loads of people are going to retire, and we don't have enough people, so let's do a kind of a recruitment drive.
Sure.
So I did that ministry experience scheme in Romford, in the Chelmsford diocese. Lived in a house in Romford and worked at St. Edward's the Confessor, Church of England Church,
where I filmed with Jordan.
a
couple of months ago.
In the center of Romford. Radically different experience I've ever experienced before. Oh my goodness. Liturgy up the walls, it was, it was crazy. I'm like, this is, calling someone father, something I wasn't used to wearing albs and stuff like that. This is like so different.
Wearing what?
Albs.
Okay. The garment things.
Yeah, garments.
And what, I don't know, is that what they called?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
So cassock and a cassock alb. Wasn't used to, all this stuff, like the chalice, the Eucharist being the center of the service. Only, I only went to like contemporary type churches, so I didn't know any of those hymns at all. I mean, I still don't know most of those hymns. I dislike most English hymns. Forgive me. But like, it was just like very like, this is just so strange. One really strange thing is having choir and people leading the worship that wasn't a Christian. That was weird for me, because like at other churches, you wouldn't even dare have a non-believer even like be on the PA. Right. Yeah,
that's true.
So I was like, oh, you have a choir full of people who like don't believe. Like, this is so strange. But it was all very, very new to me.
So you were there, and what was some of the? I mean, Romford, you would have been there 10 years ago or something, more than that. I'm out of touch.
No, exactly 10
okay.
years ago. Yeah, because it was during the Brexit. Yeah.
Oh, great.
The only borough to vote to leave the European Union, by the way.
So
Havering was the only borough in London to vote to leave the European Union.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
It makes sense. Probably wouldn't be like that now. It's changed quite a lot, I think. But I would have been almost 20 years out of date from Romford. But yeah, what were some of the sort of experiences there?
Yeah, it was exciting when I first got there, because I'm like, oh my goodness, I went from Liverpool to London. This is crazy. I know Essex, London, whatever.
Well, it's becoming more and more so London.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So I was just like, oh, this is exciting. Like, part of our training was at St. Mellitus in London. So like every Monday we went into St. Mellitus and we got to like be around all the people, and like, I think Tim Hughes was studying there at the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what, like, happy day guy, he like, oh my goodness, like he's studying, like, I was just like, this is crazy, and all these really important people in the HTV network. I was like, this is kind of crazy, and
did you find that attractive? Were you thinking that's the more of the stuff that I want to be involved in, rather than
without a doubt,
rather than Market Town scummy Romford?
I think
it's not scummy.
I think it's because it's just like, it was just a very different church tradition. So I was just like, oh, going to South Kensington every Monday. I was like, oh, this is just really, really cool. Being around majority of the people were around my age, which is quite cool. And they were Christians, and they had Worship Central there as well. So you had worship leaders.
Oh, okay.
So you had all these kind of dynamic people that you get to meet, and it was really cool. I mean, the difficult thing is, I already had a master's in theology.
Yeah.
So
from a decent college.
Yeah, from a university. So I wasn't saying there's nothing they could teach me, but like the undergraduate course and the master's course is what all they do at St. Mellitus, was like, there's nothing really for me to like learn new. So that was a little difficult. But the internship as a whole was a negative experience. I can speak openly about this. It was the people leading the internship were incredibly abusive, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically abusive. After that Christmas, I went home to be with my family, and my my parents, my adoptive family's pastor, I talked to, and she was just like, "Oh my goodness, you're not doing good. What's going on?" I told her what's going on. She goes, "You need to get out of there." And I go, "No, but I have to do this internship to prove to the Church of England I can do ministry." And she goes, "Okay." So I go back, and my vicar goes, "Can I see you right when you get back?" I'm like, "Okay." So I went back, and he goes, "So while you're away, the bishop, the archdeacon, and the person leading the internship, they basically said that they thought that you were not capable of continuing, and you're scary to be at the house. People are afraid of you. One person particularly is afraid of you. Because we lived in the house together. Mm-hmm. The interns and the man and woman in his house.
Yeah.
In this big rectory. So it was. I was a bit like. Like really shocked. So they said, "Yeah, you have to get your stuff and move." And I was a bit like, "Whoa." So he goes, "You can." In the diocese said that you can stay with me for a bit. Now I'm like, if it's unsafe for me to be around people, why would I be moving into another rectory with someone else? You know, it seems a bit weird. And that's when I was like, wow, that is like angry black man. Scary black man was very clear.
But you do that, and I think it would be lazy of me not to ask what you mean by that. Like, is this another part of what we're talking about?
It's another part of discrimination, microaggressions, whatever you want to call it, of the trope of angry black man, angry black woman. Interesting enough, a large part of my ministry in the Church of England, I have worn fake glasses. Because a black man with glasses is less intimidating to white people. So I've worn fake glasses.
It's like that thing on Instagram. You've seen the black guys when they're holding a coffee cup and wearing Patagonia. It's that thing, right?
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. So that was a terrible experience, and it was very, very abusive, and it was a huge. I mean, very, very much in my view, a cover up.
Were you the only sort of ethnic minority in the house?
Yeah.
And afterwards, maybe the next year, do you know of any?
After that year, they stopped it.
Oh, did they?
They stopped it, yeah.
The year before, were there any people ethnic minority?
No.
And was it down to your sexuality as well?
So I think
and these are very personal questions, but
no, it's fine.
You're kind of old enough to be able to think about it after this time's passed. This is the stuff for me that's just like, let's just talk about it,
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the biggest thing is, regardless of, people believe me or not, whatever, there should never be an internship house with people that have authority over you live there as well. The Church of, looking at the history of the Church of England and some of the safeguarding events that have happened, I'm like, a lot of this stuff is because there's an authority figure in the house with young people.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just like, not far from here is when, the John Ball stuff happened and stuff like that. So it's just like,
Fletcher.
It's just all this stuff like, actually, like, just don't do it. Just like, that should just be a thing. But yeah, it was very controlling, very spiritually manipulative, us having to tithe to them and stuff like that in the house. It was, they didn't even know where we were at all times. We had our door open if we're not sleeping and stuff like that. They were very conservative. They believed in conversion therapy as well. And the biggest thing is I said that I was struggling a little bit, and they said that here's a therapist, and I said okay, and the diocese was going to pay for a therapist. I'm like, oh, this that's great, whatever. And again, I was in that mindset of like, wait a minute, what does this mean? You know what I mean? Now I'm old enough to be like, okay, what does this mean? This is not just
you've experienced it before.
Yeah. So this lady who was a good therapist, NHS therapist, she went to go see me, and later I found out the leader of the internship wanted her notes after each session. She goes, I can't do that. When I left for Christmas, the leader of the internship told the archdeacon and the bishops plural, sorry, that I was clinically insane. And when I got the note and found out that's what they said, I was furious at this woman. I'm like, what? Called her up and she said, I never said that. That's not true. And even if I did believe that, I wouldn't be able to tell them that. So that's why I was left without a place. And I lived with the vicar for the rest of my time there.
Wow.
But for the first 6 weeks, I didn't have any money. Now, I only got paid £25 a week. But I didn't, it was, no money at all. So that was very damaging to me. Of this is absolutely crazy. Yeah.
So then how did you move from there? So you're wearing a dog collar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not like one of those guys on Twitter who just buys it on Temu and sticks it on.
No.
Then goes and speaks at Tommy Robinson rallies.
Exactly.
You've so how were you? Talk to me about the process of your curacy and your training in that respect.
I came here with this mission and vision from the Lord. Say you are called to the Church of England. And I'm like, and how I am with, I was like, if this is God, and there was loads of different confirmations I can go through some other time, but I was like, I'm doing that. So even though that first year, terrible, right?
Yeah.
Then I had to go home for 9 months, come back. Again, I had to pay for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Through savings and working and stuff like that. Still haven't got paid in the UK. So now it's...
You haven't been paid yet?
I've got pocket money, but never a salary.
No.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing it. So then there was a guy, and his name was Benny Hazelhurst. And he was one of the first evangelicals in the Church of England to believe that same-sex relationships are okay and holy. And he was starting an internship in Salisbury Diocese.
Right.
And I'm like, and basically my DDO said, you need to, basically because that year was so terrible, you need another year to show. And I'm like, are you kidding?
Oh, gosh.
So now this is year 4 of trying, Of
training.
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay. So I went to Poole, lived in Poole.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I have to say, it was probably one of those boring places I've ever lived in my life.
Really?
Yeah, very boring. But man, it was the most healing. The Salisbury Diocese was super, super, super healing for me. Benny Hazelhurst, amazing guy that really poured into me. Unfortunately, my first year of theological college, he passed away of cancer. But he was just absolutely amazing, God sent. And I met him because, interestingly, he came to visit our house. And he's like, oh, we're doing a house as well. We kind of wanted to visit the house. And he's like, how is it going? And I told him the truth.
Right.
And he was like, oh. And everyone else was saying all really good things. And he was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize when they said, oh, speak openly. You aren't really supposed to speak openly. These British cues that I didn't really get. Yeah, this was, year 2 of living in England.
Yeah.
So I went there, absolutely loved it. But didn't want to live in rural England. I can't drive, so maybe that's...
that is. And it is quite in the sticks, isn't it?
Yeah, and we had to drive from Salisbury to... from Poole to Salisbury at least once a week for study. Yeah. And I was like, this is I remember one time I had to take the bus, and I took 2 buses. It was just like, oh man, in rural England. But it was a really beautiful healing time. The church there was just absolutely amazing, and things like that. So I really loved it. So I went to Cranmer Hall, Durham, which is another weird thing because people are like, because obviously I was sponsored by the Diocese of Chelmsford, East London, Essex. And everyone either goes to Ridley, goes to Westcott, or goes to St. Mellitus. That's it. No one really goes anywhere else. Yeah. I guess if you are particular to churchmanship, you might go a different places, but everyone goes there. So Durham was random for them. And also, again, I have no money, so I have to get from Poole all the way to Durham. Yeah. So it's like it's a bit crazy. So that summer I did a placement. I did a placement right after that because I needed to leave the country and come back for visa reasons. And I went to the church in Sweden, in Karlstad. So I was there for 4 months, which is great. I absolutely loved it. And then I went to St. John's College, Cranmer Hall, Durham.
Right.
which was a very interesting experience.
And that's then the start of
training.
Right. Okay.
So I trained there for 2 years, evangelical college. I went there partially because the principal before, his name was Mark Tanner, who's now the Bishop of Chester.
Right.
And he kind of had this thing that he's like, I'm a Christian first, an Anglican second, an evangelical third, and a charismatic fourth. So I thought that was really, really insightful. And there's some couple people a year before me that were inclusive evangelicals who were in civil partnerships that were there. Because also I went to go visit Ridley. And I remember asking the principal, who's now a bishop in Europe. And I said, he basically said, just so you know, at Ridley we agree with women to the priesthood. What do you think about that? I'm like, great, I'm all for it. And he goes, and we don't agree with same-sex relationships. And I go, okay. So I said, what happens if you are an ordinand and you come here and you want to be in a same-sex relationship? And he did, I call it the British pause. He did the British pause, sit back, and goes, I think we would tell them that there's other theological colleges that might be better for them. So I'm like, okay. So I can't go to Ridley. So so Cranmer Hall was really great. I also liked that it was fully a part of Durham University.
Yeah.
That I would be around people who didn't believe, because it's embedded in the university. So I'm like, there's people who are biologists, who are engineers, who don't believe anything, that I could be able to share the gospel. And I actually did get to, some people I got to lead to Christ, which is amazing. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And also I just had that, and I love the North. I love the North of England. So Chelmsford Diocese, they had lots of ordinands that they end up having to go somewhere else because there's not enough space for them. So I was like, well, I'll just go to the North because I want to be at the North anyway. It was interesting. We had a small cohort of ethnic minority people, global majority people, and then we had a group of LGBT people as well. Probably about 10-15% of the ordinands were LGBT.
Right.
So quite a good number, you know. And it was quite big at the time. So there was 85 ordinands.
Wow.
Which now I think is 25. So it's quite a big difference.
Yeah.
So I was there, and but the difficult thing was the LGBT plus people were all white, quite white middle class. All the African minority people were generally all from the Commonwealth countries.
Yeah.
But also have a very conservative view. Mm-hmm. And I was in the middle. And I was experiencing both. I was experiencing both of that thing, and it was just really, really difficult. I'll be very honest, I was more integrated into the college with the non-ordinands than with the ordinands. I think because I just didn't want to talk about the Church of England all the time. I'm like, this is boring. I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life. I don't need to talk about it now. I thought it was just really, really interesting. So my closest friends from Durham University are actually the ones that wasn't ordinands.
Yeah.
I really pushed throughout my time there was, okay, so we have Issues in Human Sexuality, which is a document about sexuality in the Church of England and how we have to agree to it and how we have to behave, right? Mm-hmm. So it means it allows lineage of, it allows you to be in love with someone of the same sex, but not to be physical with that person, because then that would be sinful and that would be against being a clerk in holy orders. So I was like, okay, so how do I live this out? How do I live this out as an evangelical? How do I do this? So, because you're saying I have to live by this, but how do I live it out? The college didn't really give us tools to live that out. And I was like, this training is for us to make mistakes and do those things, right? This is what training's for.
Yeah.
I think the college felt very uncomfortable with the idea of publicly making something to publicly acknowledge that actually there is loads of LGBT people. So our LGBT group, we call it Chess Club at the beginning. So this is probably the first time saying it out loud, Chess Club. And then after a while we met and I said, can we call it the Vasey group? Now, Michael Vasey was a liturgist in the Church of England, evangelical liturgist, and he was gay.
Right.
And he died. He died in, I think, the 80s or 90s. Forgive me, I don't exactly remember. But he wrote this book called Strangers with Friends. It was the first book in the Church of England that was positive about homosexuals. So I said, and he was a lecturer at our college.
Right, great.
20 years before or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, let's name ourselves the Vasey Group after Michael Vasey. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be really, really great? And some of his old friends still works at the university. And I remember talking to them.
Yeah.
Robert Song, who's a professor at Durham, ethics professor. I asked him. He goes, I think Michael would be very proud of that. You guys named that. So we had that kind of group, but yeah, and it was. I'll be honest, mostly women as well. Right. And I was the only gay man. So that was kind of difficult at times. And then also the global majority people. So I experienced that. And I experienced some microaggressions at the college. I experienced some homophobia at the college. So then I basically went and said, this is a problem. We need to do something about this. I was the vice president.
Is it worth saying what the microaggressions were, or do we just leave it to people's imagination? Because I think I don't know, I like the detail. Just because because if you say something and someone watches it goes, oh, I'm guilty of that. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like
you're very articulate. Where'd you learn English? That's one. One's like, oh, you have a degree. Oh, wow, that's surprising. Oh, are you supposed to be here? This university? Getting stopped by the university campus security, being like, are you supposed to, things like that. Very much not taking account the way we worship and songs and stuff like that, and that cultural dynamic, being like, oh yeah, whatever that is and stuff like that. That was really tough as well. I think also, there was 2 American students at my university, and they were, and one of the lecturers were like, I don't understand, like, they're doing fine, so it must be a you thing. I go, they also grew up white middle class in America. I say, are you forgetting? He was a historian, by the way, from Cambridge.
Right.
Cambridge educated. I go, my parents grew up during segregation. They did not have the same opportunities as they did. Yeah. And generational wealth is a thing. He goes, of course. That isn't just something we just learn in books. Like, this is a lived experience. Yeah. Like, yeah. So I think some of those things, I think they're going to always have that kind of that conflict. Cranmer Hall is an evangelical theological college within St. John's College, so they have to abide by St. John's and Durham University stuff while still remaining kind of evangelical in that sense, and it's going to butt heads. Yeah. So for instance, one person. So I was the vice president of the Common Room, right, which I represented the Theological College and the rest of the students. And I remember someone saying, we want to get rid of any books that is says anything harmful to LGBT people. Well, our library has lots of theological books, and it has the Bible. so how do you so how do you do that? I mean, I said,
did you do that?
So I said I disagree with that. That's freedom of speech and stuff like that. So we decided not to do that. But I'm standing in between that all the time, right? With students that don't believe and just whatever, and just like, this is a bit weird, and we had worship that was in our main area that people walking past just could see. It wasn't like in our chapel. It was in the middle of the week. So it was really interesting that.
And is that a bit of a picture of your time in England generally? Because, like, even the thing I've taken away, I wasn't saying global majority, which I should be. I was saying ethnic minority. I'm out of date. You didn't correct me. You just used the correct term. And waited for me to catch up. So even in our conversation, you're doing what you did as the vice president. When you were in Liverpool, what were you doing with the guy that apologised eventually? What did he learn? Do you see what I'm sort of saying? Like, in your person, you're kind of bridging the gap.
And one thing that I would reflect that I did probably wrong in my theological college is, I'm an African American, so I have the spirit of like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and those like kind of freedom fighters. Like, we deserve this, whatever. Yeah. The other black folk, they lived under empire, right? So they learned how to navigate the British system in order to get equal rights, rather than how African Americans was like, we're going to do a sit-in, we're going to do that. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but they're different.
And both were necessary.
They're both necessary. But what happened is, because we were like this with each other often, because I was like, oh, they're not
really.
They're not really for the cause. And like, he's not really he's just making everything really difficult. He's an individual, not collective.
Wow, that's interesting.
So it was really interesting, and I've had to go to those people and go, I'm really sorry. That was really difficult. For me, I shouldn't have done that. I should have tried to be collective. But the difficult thing is, you guys all have a very conservative view. So like, my relationship, it was a very, very difficult time. But I protested at Theological College.
Right.
I said, because I wrote to the principal. I told them this is not okay. And what happened that summer of 2019. Forgot, 2019. I got kicked out of Theological College.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, so what happened is, the summer when you're supposed to be looking at curacies and things like that, I said, I'm not. My report was, he's refusing to go to worship. And I was refusing to go to worship because I said this, and this is honestly why. This is my heart, and I told them several times. I need to be mentored by someone in the Church of England to figure out how to live a life that's holy and pure to God and to my covenant that I'm taking with the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
If I'm taking a vow saying that I won't, have sex outside of marriage and all this stuff like that, and also, but I can still have someone who I love. How do I do this? How do we practically do this, right? Yeah. So, and I get, Church of England still in like this Victorian era of talking about sex and sexuality and stuff like that. So it's very much like, but I'm like, I get that that's where you guys are, but what am I going to do? Yeah. And they kind of refuse to give me, they just like, we don't know what to do, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, and I'm like, you need to deal with this. You need to deal with the homophobia. You need to deal with the racism. You need to deal with these things, right? And they just wouldn't. So I said, I'm not going to any worship services until you deal with this. So they wrote to my bishop, and I went to my bishop, and I had a meeting with bishop and DDO, and I basically said in the nicest way, they're like, Cramden Hall doesn't want to have you back. And I go, what? And now, interestingly enough, the person that was with me, he is now an archdeacon in Suffolk Diocese. He was like, whoa, Bishop, you realize that I thought Augustine was doing something good. He's acknowledging something that's happening, and he wants to do that. And they said, you're not repentant at all. What's going on? And I'm like, I'm telling you, racism, homophobia, and this stuff is happening, and you're just like, and it's always like, it's just attack on me. I'm like, what's happening? So so then I remember being in a field in Sussex, somewhere in Sussex, and I was at Focus, HTB Focus, right, and getting an email from the bishop saying, you have been our sponsorship for you training for ordination has been taken away. So now I have nowhere to live. And I'm like, what? And I remember I was in an internship I was a summer placement with a church, and I'm like, first of all, I hate camping anyway, and I'm like, I'm in camping, whatever, blah blah. And now I just found out I'm not training for ministry. What I'm supposed to do? And I remember the vicar just goes, oh, there's nothing we can really do. We can't really get you back to London. Like what do we do? So and then the next day after that, a friend of mine from Durham committed suicide. And that was horrendous. It was so hard. And so that happened and the vicar was like, he goes, you're released. Go wherever you need to go, whatever, because this is hard. And it was really good. And I went to go see my friends who was my friend, it was him and his girlfriend. I went to go see them because it was obviously really hard, and ended up going to his funeral. And really, really tough. But that summer, I remember just being like, what do I do? This is absolutely crazy. So what did I do? I was like, am I going to give up?
Yeah.
Now, Sam, I was told, again, my background is that civil rights movement of we don't give up, we don't give in, we just keep going, right? And I said, Lord, what the heck? This is crazy. So what did I do? I went in overdrive, and I contacted every single person I knew in the Church of England and in Anglican Communion to write letters of defense for me. And CMEAC, which is like a global majority group of people, Anglican concerns, they'll kind of help me. And I remember the guy who helped me, who was now the archdeacon, he said, get 5 or 6 letters and get them to write to the Bishop Stephen at the time. And I said, okay. Now, me and my anxiety, again, I've told you times and times I've been, and I'm saying this publicly, and it's okay. My trigger point is when my housing is threatened. That's when I fall apart. Probably because of my upbringing.
Yeah.
So I probably did about 35, 40 people writing. So it's flooded the bishop's office. Like, this is wrong. This is not the character of whatever. Interesting enough, sadly, the fellow students that I had who I said, can you write?
Yeah.
None of them did it. Because they're like, we don't want to get in trouble ourselves. So, which was hard, because I definitely would have did that for someone else.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, that's between them and God, I think. So it flooded, and then and part of the reason why I think there was some anger of that, because of the abuse I experienced in the Diocese of Chelmsford, with those people, and how the diocese didn't really do much about it. My sponsoring bishop was the bishop that was in charge of that.
Right.
And I said, I don't trust you. I don't trust this diocese to deal with safeguarding things. How can I go back to a diocese that is experiencing? I don't want to go back here.
No.
And of course, I know that, if you're a bishop, that's kind of a slap in the face with someone telling you, I don't trust you, right?
Yeah.
I get it. But I'm like, I can only be myself. I can only be honest. So I said that, and Bishop Stephen Cottrell overturned his decision. Loads of people said that it's not going to get overturned.
Yeah.
A bishop does not overturn another bishop thing. Because basically what he's saying is, you're wrong.
Yeah,
like
that's right.
That's just, he goes, that is just not British. That's not how we do it.
Yeah.
And it did. And the result was like, don't ever talk to that bishop ever again. Which is really awkward. Really awkward. I'm like, okay.
But you weren't getting on the bus with him regularly, so you were...
Exactly. I was like, but he's a bishop in the diocese.
Yeah,
I'm like just not going to talk to him.
Yeah.
And he also, and then he called me up. He goes, we talked about it. We reversed the decision, but you need to write to your principal apologizing. I'm like, apologizing for what? He goes, you need to apologize. Write a letter to me, apologize for me. That. Interestingly, I wrote in that letter, I'm doing this because of you told me to do that.
Very good.
Did that.
Yeah.
So fast forward. I did. Yeah. So it's now 2020. It's March 2020, and I applied to. Actually, interestingly, applied to a church that's in St. Albans Diocese, where Soul Survivor is, and it was actually it was going to be a Soul Survivor, a Soul Survivor revitalization church.
Okay, right.
And I was super excited, like, oh, this is really great, blah blah.
Yeah.
So I applied for this Curacy, because after now it's like it's open. You just have to find your own Curacy somewhere in the country. And I tried to find somewhere in the north, couldn't find anywhere. And I applied for this church, and that's when the letter came and said, this congregation is white monochrome. We don't think that you would feel very comfortable here, so we're rejecting you. We're not coming to have a Curacy here. And that's what made national news. because there were people like, that's just blatant racist.
Yeah.
But that happened. And what happened a couple weeks after that? International pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I have nowhere to go. No Curacy to go to.
Yeah.
No job or anything like that. A couple months later, I win the 2020 Theology Slam for Church Times, Archbishop of Canterbury, which is nice. It was kind of cool to have a tweet that was from the Archbishop of Canterbury, even though I'm like, I remember tweeted back saying, this is nice to have this award, but I'd rather have a Curacy, which I later found out it wasn't directly from him, it's from his PR people, but it's still quite cool. And that gave me opportunities to have a voice. I've realized, oh yeah, this is not just a random person, but he has something to say, which was really nice. His prophetic voice, so which was amazing. But it still didn't have.
What is that? What is the Theology Slam? What does it look like, and why does it exist?
So it exists so that particularly young voices are able to speak into something that is really important, a theme or a part of contemporary life that we can speak about. So I did theology and race. This is even before the stuff happened with that. I did write it in my Theology Slam, and it got national news and things like that. So because it was applicable, because the big phrase at the time was radical Christian inclusion, and
right.
That was a letter that Justin Welby and John Santamu wrote, saying that we want to enter into this radical Christian inclusion, which no one really understands what that actually mean. If I'm not being honest. So I did that, but I had no job or a place to live. So I moved to Sunderland. I was on a placement in Sunderland one time in my time in Durham. So I had made a friend, and he lived in a converted church. Wasn't so converted, but a church. And I lived there for a year. Had no money, nothing to do.
Right. Wow.
It was really scary. I mean, I would have just went home and be with my family, but obviously you couldn't have to fly to the States. And I couldn't get a job because of visa stuff. Couldn't get a Curacy. It was rough. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. My mental health really suffered. I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder during that time as well, which makes sense because it's from childhood and different trauma things that you experience. So it was tough. It was really, really tough. Like, no one knew what was happening in the world, and I couldn't get a job, or I couldn't get benefits because I'm not British, but I also couldn't get unemployment in America because I wasn't in the U.S. So I was just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So it was, and my college said, that's not our thing, that's the diocese, and the diocese said, that's not our thing, that's the college's. So I was just like in the middle. So, yeah.
And then how did you end up in your most recent
role?
Spot? Yeah.
Yeah. So, the Bishop of Manchester, David Walker, he offered me a Curacy in the Diocese of Manchester, and at a church called St. James and Emmanuel, Didsbury, which is kind of a big flagship church for inclusive evangelicalism. So, and I knew I did a placement there for a Easter placement there before, so I knew the staff and I knew the rector there. And I went there in July 2021 and worked there until just 2 weeks ago. So yeah. So I worked there for 4.5 years.
So you've been in Britain for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
You'd put a lot of groundwork in the US as well in terms of education and opportunity and that kind of ministry. Where does the direct thing to say would be, where do you fit? The more I guess the softer thing would be to say, where does like homosexuality or being gay fit?
Yeah, I'm always going to be an advocate for marginalized people. In different parts of my time when I've experienced hurt and pain and trauma, I go back to liberation theology, which is like kind of
Yeah.
my thing.
Yeah.
James Cone, Black liberation theology. Gutierrez, Latin American Catholic theology. Liberation theology, love it. It's really important to me. It's honestly how I keep my faith. I honestly believe that if I wasn't a liberation theologian, then I wouldn't have a faith still. I read Luke. I read the story of Zacchaeus.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite stories in Luke's gospel. That Zacchaeus, who has traumatized people, he's hurt people massively. He's a traitor, in this sense, he's the original traitor, so it's, really, really bad. But he's impacted by the gospel he's impacted by Jesus himself.
Yeah.
And Jesus says, I want to come to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just so you know, in England, it's okay to say, I'm going to come to your house instead of saying, I'm waiting for your invite. But I'm going to come to your house. Because that's what Jesus does, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he does that, and then he goes and says, he's so impacted by God that he changes and says, I'm going to pay people more than I took from them.
Yeah.
And I think forgiveness and reconciliation truly means restitution. I believe that's a biblical understanding, and that's the liberation of all people and all things. And I think that's what's really, really important. And I think for me, that's what keeps me going. That's my faith that keeps going. And the last year has been really, really hard. I finished my curacy. For 2 of the years, I was by myself at my own church, St. Nicholas Kingsway. It was a lovely church. Not my tradition, again, robes and hymns and stuff like that, not my tradition. But I applied for 35 jobs in the Church of England. 35 jobs. And didn't get a single one. Didn't get an offer for a single one. And now it's coming, 2025 came to a close of my time with the Church of England, and I'm moving to Bermuda and in a few months, I should say, and joining the Methodist Church there, being a pastor instead of a vicar, being a pastor instead of a priest, which is, very interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought that would happen. But one thing I told my congregation is, through the doctorate I've been doing in organizational psychology, is you need to go where you thrive, not where you're just tolerated. And I really truly believe that. And I still love the Church of England. I still want to come back one day and be a vicar and plant a church that is lively in the spirit, that believes in the gospel of Jesus Christ, that's justice infused, and that is reaching people who people don't always talk to. Yeah. I think that's really important. I would like to do that. And I have given so much of my life to the Church of England. Yeah. And I do really believe it. Because actually I believe on the ground, wonderful, wonderful people. But unfortunately, I think it has some structural issues. Like an old leaky house, it has some structural issues. And if you don't deal with those structural issues, it falls apart. And I think that's often is what's happening. I think safeguarding is the number one issue. I think I think I told you the other day, I find it interesting that, some of my conservative evangelical friends, they'll be the first one to go, whoa, same-sex blessings, I'm leaving. But have they did that about John Smythe? Has my Anglo-Catholic friends did that about John Bell? Has my charismatic friends did that about Mike Pilavachi? Has my other friends did it about Jonathan Fletcher? Conservative evangelical friends? No congregation church said, let's actually leave because this is so bad. Yeah. But they are doing it over same-sex relationships. So to me, their gospel means it's more important about sexual ethics than the protection of all people and their well-being. That's concerning for me. Also, we can't mark our own homework when it comes to safeguarding. We can't mark our own homework. It's really interesting. If I was such an optimistic man, and I always say I'm not optimistic, I'm a prisoner of hope. But this is what Cornel West says, and I try to do that. And I would love if the king intervened and said, this is making a mockery of your church. Not because I'm a royalist, not because I'm a royalist.
Yeah,
but
it's
just, yeah, I know that's surprising. No, I'm not because I'm a royalist, but because this is bad.
Yeah.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to do something drastic, and I think part of it, it's interesting because I wrote an article a couple years ago about Meghan and Harry. And people were a bit like surprised that they're like, why are you, whatever. And I empathize with Meghan. Because she's going up against, regardless of what you think of, she's going up against the British establishment. That's scary. And it's, obviously, I'm not saying I'm the same as Meghan Markle, Princess Meghan Markle. But I get what it is to go against, to be an American, to be black, and to go against the British hierarchy. You don't do exactly what they say. It's not a good idea. It's very dangerous, and it can destroy your well-being.
Are you destroyed?
I'm struck down but not destroyed. I still have my faith. I still have people that love me. I still believe in how Jesus continues to renew, and restore. I have learned so much in the last 4.5, 5 years in Manchester about love, about grace, about people, about my own flaws. I know I'm not perfect. I know can be very hard-headed, very, very jump to do things to. But also, I can be also very gentle and humble as well, and sometimes. So yeah, so I think that I'm not destroyed. I think I'm rising up. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any position to say it from, but I'm sorry the Church of England has hurt you like this.
I'm always reminded, I know this sounds really dark, but I'm always reminded that the Lord says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. And I think what happens to us, regardless of what you believe, whatever, what happens to us, people will be accounted for that. And they have to make an account to God of why they did that.
Teachers are judged more harshly.
Yeah, and I'm not a not to be, again, not to be dark, but I think that I'm not the type of person to play the game. Throughout this whole thing, people have kept saying, good, honest, grateful people, some of my friends said, you have to learn to play the game.
Yeah.
And I go, I didn't see in this book.
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone play the game. I'm sorry, I don't see that.
No, I'm with you.
I believe in the gospel of Jesus, and I believe in, I believe what I read. Maybe not literally, I do have a critical mind. I'm not like a literalist, but I do believe in Christianity. So it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to play your game. I don't think that's the way of salvation, is to play a game. So,
but it's the way of
institutions.
Yeah,
is to play the game.
And this one's an old one.
And it's weird because if you think about it, like, I'm a black man who is ancestors to enslaved people. That the very church institution I was getting paid for, that was training me, was a very institution that propagated the enslavement of my ancestors. And my thing is, that's because some people are like, that is stupid. Why would you ever work for it? Whatever. But my thing is, because I believe in the redemptive God.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? The first Anglican church I ever went to, St. James in the City in Liverpool, they had these small little chains outside the church. And I remember asking the vicar, I said, why is there these random chains hooked up to the church? And he was like, Yorkshire man, great guy. He goes, because sometimes what happened when people go to church with their slaves,
Whoa.
And they would chain them up. And then after, they would go to the market and go do something. That's the church I got confirmed in. That is nuts. But that's the redemptive gospel of Jesus. Is that the enslaved becomes a leader. Amazing. Sorry, I'm a preacher. That would be a good clip for TikTok, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you can use that. Yeah.